So basically it's cleaning up while you guys are sleeping and everything
when
is
nobody's
fine
doing
when you
anything.
wake. Exactly. When you wake up, everything's just good to go. Perfect.
Exactly.
I think it didn't take us more than 10-15 minutes with the Sanity Context skill to just get this up and running.
We have some that run hourly, some every 10 minutes, depending on the needs that we have.
An app that's really alive and organic, and you feel like every time you come back here, there's something new to uncover.
But I know Saskia is kind of the queen of automations and workflows. You are. Welcome to Sanity on Sanity. This is the first episode. It's Sanity people talking about what Sanity can do. Today I'm joined by Saskia and Peter, who's in the systems team. They are talking about Sanity Home, which is our intranet. Peter just giving us a little tour of the Sanity Home.
Yeah, hello. So we're looking at Sanity Home already here in front of us. It's a new Sanity Home. We'll probably say a bit more in a moment about where we're coming from and why we built this in the first place. But here you can see the global homepage. It shows news from management, also news from Sanity that's pulled in from Slack, from different channels that we have across the organization. And then celebrations, of course, there's lots to celebrate every week. Birthdays, new hires, people having their anniversary at Sanity, people earning the values gift card, which is some culture program that we run internally. And also events, basically what's happening across the organization, internally and externally, like this one today. Also new logos, of course, these are mocked up. And as you can see, we're in a very pets themed studio or application because, most of what we do is not top secret, but there are some details that we couldn't show today. So we, did a bit of a makeover here with all the pets at Sanity. So here we go. The global homepage is the landing page. This is where people go to just get a quick update and see what's happening across the organization. We have many Slack channels, I think close to 3,000 nowadays. So it can be really hard to keep track of what's going on. And what's really important here for us is to have one home where the most important updates bubble up to the global homepage. And then you can also drill down further and go to the department level, for example. We have marketing, a beautiful name, and sales, for instance. So here we see the sales homepage, which looks like the global home, but it's then scoped to this department with updates from that department. Same for this one, for instance. And then on a team level, we have the same thing. So you might drill down even further, where you get team level updates. And how it works at the moment is if we see that there's a lot of engagement on a team level, it bubbles up to the department level. If then there's even more engagement, we think, okay, this is pretty important for everyone to see. So it bubbles up all the way to the top. And then some other sections are just sort of more manual and curated, like the one here from management, which is just kind of set and people will always see this. It's very important for us that this is an app that's really alive and organic, and you feel like every time you come back here, there's something new to uncover, which is, I think, the greatest difference from the old intranet version that we had. That was much more static and therefore not as frequently visited because people would only go there with a very specific purpose. For example, like I'm looking for this policy, or I'm looking for that particular resource, and I'm just going to go there for that specifically. But not really like, what's the latest happening at Sanity today. So that was one of the main problems we tried to solve with this version.
Yeah, no, it looks amazing. And it's also using the Sanity app SDK. So I think this is a really cool use case when it comes to that. And with all the branding and everything, which I also think is really nice. You guys have really spent time thinking about like what this looks like and like kind of feel like the information hierarchy. So that's really cool. I think we briefly touched on it, but you guys are automating a lot, but there was also a kind of conscious decision of not automating everything. Maybe talk a little bit like where you're automating versus where you're not automating and why. And then I'm going to also ask Saskia around just like what those automations look like, basically. So.
Yeah, it's a challenging topic sometimes because you don't want it to feel completely automated. Sometimes you still want to have some control around what really shows up, especially when it comes to these larger, more important management posts. For example, these at the top here are completely curated. They're not automated at all, and they usually are a bit less short-lived than the others as well. This is really based on engagement. These at the top are not based on that at all. They're more like pinned items. Then things like celebrations, that is automated. It's also very helpful that everything at the back of this is automated. So we're synchronizing, of course, people records from our people information system, HR information system, and other things like events are being synchronized directly from different calendars at Sanity, like our marketing calendar and internal calendars, customer milestones calendars, for example, so that people across different teams can see, okay, there's this big launch coming in and we want to keep an extra eye on that for our customers. So parts where we can automate, we definitely do that and make sure that, no one needs to keep eyes on this, to constantly be updating and making sure that the latest information is there. And then, this is a bit of a mix here, this section. Some channels are being pulled in automatically. We have a few channels where we just confidently know anything that gets posted there, like the announcements channel, is worth seeing and will need to be here. And then there are many, many other channels where it really depends. Most of the discussion happening there doesn't have to be here on Home as our operational hub. But then people can pull it in anyway and can also post from Home and have that posted back to Slack. So that integration is bidirectional. And then, most other things are just not automated, but we have some processes running at the back to check and make sure things stay in sync.
No, it's awesome. What you and Saskia have been doing is really cool to see. And we'll go into a little bit later around how you kind of built this to kind of live beyond Sanity Home, or not. Like, you're sharing a lot of components and you're building a lot of automation that you're actually using in different places, which I think is really nice as well. You really set this up to kind of succeed beyond this. You really have thought about that. But obviously this is SDK view, and this is what people will come and see and people will interact with. But as many Sanity people know, and if you're new to Sanity, we also have this view called the Sanity Studio, which is really where you edit things. So maybe Saskia can jump in and show her screen and talk through the automations that she's been working on. I know both of you have been working on that, but I know Saskia is kind of the queen of automations and workflows. You are. You've been doing you've been creating so many plugins and all of that. So I think it would be really cool to just see what that looks like and talk through what those automations are really.
One example would be that we have the Slack channels, Slack tags, and emojis. All of our emojis synced into
we have a lot.
Yeah, we have a lot.
You have a lot.
But I wanted to make sure that we have them. While we do not sync all of our channels back in, because we also have a lot of them, and each channel gets its own document in this data set, I was thinking that it would be better to make them available quickly via cache, but then also just let people manually decide which ones to sync in. But then we do fetch everything from Slack to make sure that it's there, descriptions and other things. Then we also have our Slack tags. Those include every person that exists in this particular workspace, and those are pulled in automatically, both group and personal tags. And once a new tag is created, it will automatically try to find a person that it can be attached to, or a team, based on emails. And while this is one document per one tag, we also have a different way to do this. And this would be, for example, the Slack catalog. And as we don't ever need to edit them in the studio, we just have one array, which is very, 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 very long.
Very, very long, with all the cool emojis
exactly.
we have. Yep.
But it would be easier to have one document with a lot of array items than have each individual one string, basically,
definitely
synced into documents. Another thing that we have is calendars, which is a manual setup, but then syncs automatically. So if you create a calendar, which is mapped towards a Google Calendar in our workspace, you can just paste in the Google Calendar ID and it will fetch everything. You can then sync it, and it will update and show these calendars depending on if it's for a team, for a department, or for the whole company. It will show it depending on what the scope is. It will show it in Home automatically as well.
So I don't think we were actually mentioned, but all of these kind of, all of our automations basically in this are using our own schedule functions, right? So those are set up on kind of different intervals. That's what I was looking for, different intervals.
We have some that run hourly, some are every 10 minutes. There's a lot of different things depending on the need that we have. How important is it that we have everything like synced up, and how probable is it that it's going to change that often, right? So I think the calendar is once an hour. But we have others like the Slack tags and stuff. They do it only once a day, I think.
Yeah.
We also have cleanup functions that run.
Yes.
That's one of those
really
things.
Cool. Yeah.
So even if we don't have a cron function to sync specific things because they're basically trigger based or events based, we still run I think it's a 3 a.m. European time. And it just cleans up everything that might have gone wrong in the time between. So if we had a message from Slack that is not correctly synced, it would clean this up. So we still at 3 a.m. in the morning, it will align on Slack and in Home itself.
So basically, it's cleaning up while you guys are sleeping,
exactly.
and everything
while
is just
nobody's
fine
doing
when you wake.
anything.
Exactly. When you wake up, everything is just good to go. Perfect.
Yeah, exactly. Another SDK app that we built for the company is called Coach. There we have the options, for example, to both two-way sync between Google Calendar events, so we can schedule them, edit them, whatever. And it's the same on both ends, basically. So we don't have to. If you are in this particular app, you won't have to leave the environment that you're in and just do whatever you need quickly, and then just move on to whatever you have to do later on. We have so many.
There's so many. Obviously, we're dog fooding our own product, right? So we're using it a lot. We're running them so often, which maybe not everyone would run a schedule function every hour for a calendar, but like I think
every 10 minutes sometimes.
I think it's really cool that we're actually using it so much. We can call anything, that goes wrong or whatever.
I mean, the big shout out to the runtime team as well, because they are amazing.
They are,
They help a lot with this because we are kind of cruising the edges of what has been done before with scheduled functions or just like functions in general. But it's been really easy to do. So
it's cool. So okay, we've talked about all these functions, right? We have all these functions, but maybe we'll just look at what that looks like, because scheduled functions is something that's been around for a while, but it was kind of GA'd. I should probably know this, but let's say a couple of weeks ago. And I think it would be cool to just see what that actually looks like. And I think Saskia has also promised that we can also open source some of these so people can actually have a look and see.
I will share some of the things that I can share. I will clean it up a little bit, but then we'll
just as examples, basically.
Exactly. So either as a guide or as a recipe, we'll see. So we can look at some of the functions here. All of the functions are bundled as blueprints. So if you want to orchestrate anything, you would have to do it within a blueprint and deploy that blueprint, not just a function. These functions, these functions and the blueprint are on the organization basis now. So any cron function has to be on the org level, not the project level. And we can already see that. For example, for the Link calendar event, we do it every 10 minutes. And maybe a little bit easier to see, they can see what we have, right? We have token rotation, we have daily celebrations, we have review cycles that we implement via this. We post to Slack and sync from Slack.
So those are bidirectional as well?
Yeah. They're also bidirectional. You can edit them in the studio and you can edit it in Slack. You can post in Slack and import it into the studio if you want like the first message of a thread. So we always import threads. And then people can comment, react, and do whatever they want in both apps, basically. So you don't have to like go from one place to the other, and all information is in one place.
Yeah, it's always accurate in both places.
Exactly. So we can see sync reactions to Slack and. But what we also do, for example, if we have people coming in, we don't want to make people always put up everything that they have, right? For example, for geolocations and things like that, we actually have the city that people live in, and we get the geolocation for that city, like a representative geolocation for that city, and show it on a world map, so people can also like figure out who's
close to you, basically. Who's close to you, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So you can meet people. We also have recommendations. So you can just share recommendations in cities through these maps.
Nice. Perfect for a remote company and people
exactly.
meeting
So
up.
if you're traveling, you don't have to like ask all the time. You can just look it up quickly. And this, for example, this is the link person to Slack tag, which means that whenever a person is created, right? This is not it's not a scheduled function. This is a function based on a trigger for document trigger. And then this is all something else. This is another.
I think the one that I really like as well is whenever someone gets onboarded, that automatically basically trigger an onboarding flow for them, right? So
so this is another app than Home.
Yes, sorry.
My project.
Yeah, so not confused, but like
cool
they kind of work together a little bit. So Sanity Home is our
it's all
intranet.
the same project.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's different data set, but it's still the same project. And Coach, which is this particular project or this particular app, is fired by Home. So any kind of information that we need about people, which roles they have, etc., we refer back to Home, which is synced with our HR apps, or as Peter already told us. In the workflow that you just described, it goes into anytime a person is added in Home, and we have to assume this is a person that is new to Sanity and will need to be onboarded. They have a title, normal. And we take that title, the person, and some other information, and then check the coach data set, go through all of the templates that we have for roles, and create a direct onboarding plan for the particular person based on the template that we have. And it's also possible to edit something in the plan and then apply to the template and the other way around, although they are very different documents. And actually, most of the content on these templates are linked to to references, so they don't hold a lot of content themselves, which makes it a little bit complicated. But it's pretty cool if when we roll this out, and we already tested it, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, it's very cool. Okay, so before I'm going to let Peter take over again and kind of just show the chatbot side of things, and also talk a little bit just about the background and kind of what's next for Sanity Home and how this all syncs with everything else, it would be cool for you to show the flow diagram, like how everything looks, because we talked about a lot of functions today. We have many more. And I feel like it's always cool to see how these things flow together in kind of a one view, so people can picture this for themselves, because no solution is the same, especially in this world of Sanity, right? But I think just like visualize this a little bit, just like briefly talk through how this flows step by step. Yeah. For me, it's also very hard to always to visualize everything, because our all of our functions don't just do one thing. They maybe hit an endpoint that then has a handshake with something else. So there's a lot of things that we have. And we can share this as well, I think, if people want to see like roughly what this looks like.
Yeah. With functions, it is quite hard to imagine everything, so we sketched it out a little bit. One example for is the posting of messages into Slack that are also news posts. So any kind of news that we saw on the page are based on news post documents, but those can also function as a Slack message, basically. So when you create a news post, you add a channel, and a Slack message is actually not set yet. So if you republish something, it's not triggering this. It will hit the function post news to Slack, which then resolves the author. So the person that is set as the author of the news post, it does a OAuth, so it hits an endpoint at another project that we have. Then it receives the token that is then taken, and that is then sent to the Slack API, which creates the message for you as yourself. But if you don't want to do that, you can also post as the bot, basically. And the result is a Slack message that is synced both ways. So anybody reacting in Slack will see that in Home, because we have our custom emojis there. Of course.
Custom emojis are key.
This is actually something that I really was adamant.
No, I agree. I
took an extra evening to do
love
this.
my own custom emojis. I love everyone else's. You're good at custom emojis. No, this is really cool. We will share so people can actually look at this and see what this looks like in kind of different flows. And I'm sure people will find that they can find an example that works for them. You know, not everyone is going to use everything, but I'm sure people can find something that's useful. We also have a chatbot. This is actually using something that we call Sanity Context, previously known as Agent Context. And maybe Peter can just talk through a little bit what that looks like. I know that we haven't built this out fully yet, but it is working. It has this little cute icon. So maybe just talk through that.
Yeah, so Sanity Context is something that we've integrated in a bunch of different apps so far. I think Sanity Home was probably one of the first ones that we added it to, because we saw immediately, people are used to, searching, but sometimes you just want to be a bit more precise around what you're looking for, or just use natural language and get a bit more information. So it was definitely one of the first projects that we added it to. It's down here at the bottom. I think what's interesting about this one in particular, this implementation, is that it's very basic compared to some other bots we've been building with this. So this is almost like a default implementation. I think it didn't take us more than 10, 15 minutes with the agents, with the Sanity Context skill to just get this up and running. And in fact, we spent more time figuring out what to do with the icon than we've actually, used to.
But you want to make software fun, right? Like it needs to feel fun. So
that's right. It's a testament to the team as well. It was really, really easy to set up. There's some other implementations that we've done. Maybe that's interesting to mention. Just this week, we've launched a new, also powered by Sanity Context, a new agent on sanity.io/help. Kudos to Darius and Elisa and the team. That's much more advanced. It does injection of context on the go about people's accounts and what plan they might be on to give more targeted answers. It also does some intelligent deflection to different locations depending on the conversation. So that's much more sort of elaborate, and we've spent a lot more time there.
I think we might have to do an episode on that solely. There's so much to unpack on that. So I'm not promising anything, but if people are interested in that, and I think people should be interested in that, we'll do an episode on that.
I think it's a great idea. But this one is more basic, and that's great too, because it was quick to set up. And then we did spend a bit of time just figuring out, okay, what should the agent look like? And I think the original idea was to figure out some sort of Clippy-like personality. So we maybe looked at animating the logo, put some googly eyes on top. That didn't really work out in early exploration. So we fell back on this kind of dotted pattern, and we said, okay, let's figure out some different patterns that we can run as the agent is going through different modes, like thinking, answering actively. And for instance, if you click here, it's maybe a bit subtle to see, but there's this animation. Just say, this is activated now, and then let me see if I ask, where can I find the partnerships team?
Very important questions. We need to know.
We need to know this, yeah.
We need to know this.
And now you can see it's thinking, and then in a moment when it starts talking, it has that other animation, just to give it a bit more personality than typically.
It's like a voice animation.
That's right. So then we can click in and just go to the partnerships team, led by our vetted friend here.
Archimedes.
So cute. No, I love it. You guys are just doing really cool things. I love that we are dogfooding our own product, and that we are really pushing the limits on just using a lot of it, like a lot of schedule functions, using Sanity Context. Like you said, this is maybe a simple example of what you can do, but it's very useful when you just need information now. I feel like sometimes I'm like, I can't be bothered like going around like clicking. I just want to be like, where can I find this? And I want it now. And maybe that's on me, but I don't have enough patience. But it's cool to just be able to do it here. And then I think finally, just be cool to touch on. We've touched on a couple of applications now. We touched on Sanity Home. We touched on Coach. And I think this is also to grasp what the interest is out there. But how did you kind of look to set this up? You have some shared components that we briefly touched on. Just talk a little bit like maybe the setup in general, what this looks like, and how these things kind of work together, or how they don't work together, and how you're kind of building to build out more stuff.
Sure. So it's really important for us, because we're a small but mighty team. Kudos to Saskia. Is that we don't just, every time we make a new application or a new service or a new set of functions, we don't reinvent the wheel and start from zero again, because we also need to maintain whatever we built over time, and we want to add to this and just have this ecosystem of applications across the company and automations. So I think what was clear to us early on is we need to have some standards across everything. So we have shared components when it comes to the UI that where we care about the right level of abstraction. So you might have Sanity UI. People are pretty familiar with that library, which is a bit like the atoms that you can quickly build smaller components with. We take it one level higher, so we're building more like the molecules out of that, maybe even something a bit bigger than that. So it's not really like a box or so that we built here, but it's more like, okay, here's an agent that we want to include, for example, this agent window, or there's a search functionality we want to include, or a particular navigation type, or a particular calendar or so. So we built these larger components that we can then maybe style a bit differently between apps depending on what's needed, but the core components in there are the same and are shared across, so that if there's ever something we want to extend, or there's maybe an issue somewhere, we can extend it once or fix it once and have it just rolled out everywhere. That's important. And the other two things, sort of applying the same principles for us, are the data layer. Whenever we pull in data from different systems, we mentioned the HR system here, but we have other applications where we have like a go-to-market content lake, for example, where we have like 10 different platforms, maybe even more, pulling in data from those platforms, so that we can build different apps on top of that layer and don't have to redo this work every time we have something new we want to build. So that's very important. And also to have all these systems talk to each other in Sanity through cross-dataset references. And then finally, we saw functions before. It's important for something like a Slack integration that's bidirectional, or a calendar integration that's bidirectional, that we can, we don't just build that many times, but we can build it once and reuse it across all the applications, because that's, it usually takes a bit of time to get that in place. And it's just nicer to lift on one implementation. So those are, I guess, 3 layers which we're thinking at the moment.
Awesome. Lots of things to unpack, lots of things we didn't have time to talk about. But yeah, I just want to say thank you guys for coming on this first pilot episode of Sanity on Sanity.
Excited.
And you can always reach us in Discord. So both Saskia and Peter are in Discord. So if you do have some questions around this, you want to kind of dive deep, please do. There's only so much you can cover in an episode. We have a starter coming out. It's not an intranet starter. It is a knowledge-based starter. What we can do is you can clone down the repo and you can try this for yourself and kind of play around with these things. Let us know what you think. And yeah, thank you.